I got you.
All right, good.
So how are you?
I am good. It's we had a crazy storm last night. I mean, like we got Charleston got like 3 inches of rain in like 2 seconds. So they were
Wow.
like supping in the streets and there was all sorts of weird stuff happening.
Oh
And
my God.
it blew our back door open and this morning it was a giant pool.
Oh my
So
goodness.
yeah,
So, life as a digital nomad and a gypsy on the road.
that's right.
I know, and nobody sent me questions because I think your episode was so awesome. I was just
Right.
listening
There's
to it.
no questions
There was
left.
no questions left. No, I actually just listened to it. It was really great. Jody did a great job with producing it, as usual. Um, and it covered a lot of great stuff. So hopefully we'll get some people in here that have some questions. I know several people checked in with me and said, "Oh, I want to see Simone and say hi." So we'll see. Let me see if I can wake them up here.
Are we too early?
No, I don't know. I mean, it's the rest of the world. It's not so early. We're early here, but yeah,
So weird. I like have this stupid sidebar that is cutting a lot of stuff off, but you don't see that, right?
I don't see that. I just see you. Yeah, you're very far away though. You know, you should sit closer to the camera. There you go. Now I see ya.
I'm
I
right
see
here.
ya. Have you gotten one of the infamous webcams that everybody's dying for?
Hell no. I have my MacBook Pro. That's all I need.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have it's really funny. I actually have my fancy Yeti microphone here, but I don't really use it except for recordings because
Yeah.
I find it annoying just having my face.
Well, I mean that's an interesting point. It's sort of like what gear do you actually need? I mean, there's a lot of things that you could accumulate, but when you're moving around, it's like what actually works. I find a lot of times when I'm
Well,
doing podcasts
you
with
see that?
people, yeah, yeah,
That's about it.
I know I got my big microphone here, but I really only use it when I'm doing actual podcasts, and I find that the headset that came with my phone is is perfectly fine. You know, the
Yeah.
microphone is great and it works really well for conference calls. It's not so great if I need to have my hands free. So occasionally I will use the Bluetooth version, but try to limit
I
it
mean,
to.
I'm pretty silly. I have, my 2 bags of office gear and I can't really do without it because when I need to actually record some training materials, yeah, I need better sound and the sound levels I need to be able to edit them in Camtasia and whatever. But I find myself like a lot of times when I do Facebook Lives, yeah, I do have a tripod, but I'll just do some weird rigging sitting so I don't have to get it out. So it is kind of do I actually use the tools that I have? Very little of the time.
Yeah. So what are the actual essentials? I'm curious. So, I mean, everybody's got sort of the like must have for on the road, road warrioring. Like what do you absolutely have to have when that's in your kit that you travel with?
Well, I think it depends on what you do, right? Since I record a lot of training material, having actually a really good microphone I tried just the AirPods and the earbuds and the like little micro recorder things and all the small things. I tried those for a long time and it was always disappointing. And I think sound quality is massively important. So I do think a good microphone that you can rig that has a couple different attachments and that pop filter thing is really important. Other than that, I think a MacBook Pro is absolutely essential. I suffered through life with a MacBook Air for a long time, and life is so much better with the Pro.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. I finally switched over and I was so happy that I did.
Yeah, no, and having 2 sets of earbuds is really important
Yeah.
because I constantly run out of battery and I have to switch.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I mean, I think, and about developing routines, which is one of the things that you talked about earlier, even in the podcast. And it's like, what exactly, how do you identify what those are as they're in different places? Or do you use the same routine in every place that you're in so that that becomes sort of the one thing that you carry with you?
yeah, And it's kind of, I think we talked about that on the podcast too. It's,
Yeah.
I do my discovery calls on Zoom now. So that means I have to have some place in each house that looks like I'm not sitting in a bed, which is actually quite challenging when you're in rentals. It's not exactly, I don't drag my desk with me.
Yeah. Good. So good background and good sound, right?
Yeah. And good light. That's the other thing that's challenging.
I'm trying to note this here so we can have like a little.
I like your background screen. That's kind of a cool one.
You know what? This is like the best hack that I've ever found. It's a tatami screen. So when I'm not using it, my office during the quarantine has become my bedroom. So,
Right.
having the tatami screen is great because I can just sort of push it up against the wall when I'm not using it. But when I am on a call or doing any work stuff, it also helps me sort of not focus on what's going on in the background. It's
It's your
just,
little cocoon. Yeah,
yeah,
I
it's a
need to
little
find
cocoon.
one that's more, that's more like a tent version where I can like
A pop up.
exactly.
Well, somebody needs to develop one if there isn't one, really. And actually, something that has a little bit of a sound buffer would be pretty awesome, wouldn't it? Uh oh, you froze.
Yeah, because uh, that's life in quarantine.
Yeah,
Internet is fun.
yeah.
Am I unfrozen?
Yes, you are. You're good. You froze in
Okay,
this.
that's always the best. So what should we be talking about?
How about self care? Because I think that's something that you guys are really good at, but I think that people downplay in, when you're on the
Drinking lots of
move,
water.
you drink lots of water. But also just, some of the key things that you can add to your routine that you guys are so great because you've got those Great Danes. I mean, they force you out. We talked a little bit about that on the podcast, but like just what kinds of things do you feel like are essential for self-care in order to be productive and still have joy in your life?
It's a funny thing because when this whole quarantine thing happened, Sarah and I were joking because we are like, we already live life kind of like we're in quarantine anyway. So nothing changes much really for us during the week. And then we don't get to go out on the weekends. That's a little bit of a sucker, but it is kind of we still got to get out of bed at a decent time. So for me, my morning ritual is massively important. Like I can't really focus without it. And that includes like we're on a pretty regimented exercise routine right now. And we always have been, but we've even stepped it up. And I have noticed how incredibly important it is for me to feel good in my body. So I think in terms of self-care, I think for entrepreneurs in general, I don't know it's kind of interesting, like how many of my clients are actually in good shape, healthy, and focused on actually physical health just as much as company health. I can think of maybe two. It's like, I spoke to somebody yesterday who I've been playing with for a while, and at some point I know we'll get it together, but he is like, yeah, I've actually been totally sober throughout this whole process, and I think I've had one bottle of wine in the last month, and I'm actually working out and getting fit. I'm like, you're the third person other than myself and my wife that I've talked to who's doing this. So really having a good exercise routine every morning, I think, is huge. For stress level management, for one thing, and also just clarity, focus, and feeling good. If you're sitting down all day, I think it's really important that to have moved already when people start their day. I have a pretty awesome meditation routine, and this is kind of funny, but I don't know if I can. I could walk over there with the computer, but I actually spent a boatload of money on this. This is what I'm talking about, hacks. It's a meditation lamp, and it's super high tech. You'd love it. It's really, really geeky. It has like these
Yay!
LED lights that are blinking at all these different.
Is it a
Like they're
Jove?
strobing, huh?
Is it a Juve?
No, it's called a Pandora Star. It comes from England. I had to have it smuggled in. No, not really. I avoided tax by having my brother bring it.
Shh.
Shh, I know. But it is one of those things where it has like a bazillion different sequences that do different things to your brain frequencies. And 20 minutes under that lamp is like your life will never be the same again. It's amazing. It's amazing for sleep. It's amazing for focus. It's amazing for just general outlook, being grounded, blah, blah, blah. So I always do one of those. I play around with, what do I want to do? An upper, or do I want a downer? So some sort of mindset practice that really helps with setting up the day right. Because I think I just got off a call with a client where we're like, you're strategically amazing, but you need to work on your mindset. Makes all the difference between, what are you focused on?
Yeah.
On what's working or what's working.
Absolutely.
So taking out time for that. Yeah. And I've been geeking around with scripture. It's kind of a cool thing, looking up some Bible verses and looking at like, what does this stuff say? And this is like thousands of years old. And what does that relate to in today's climate and who people are today? It's kind of fun to play around with. So I keep coming up with new things that I think, for me, it feels like I relate to the world in a bigger way.
And how does that fit in with, I mean, you work a lot with strategy and with different companies, particularly startups, helping them really get honing in on their strategy and focusing on that high value action that you talk of. In times like this, what are some of the things that people can do, sort of quick, not necessarily quick hacks, but hacks to really get to that place of understanding what their high value actions are? And like, what are the things that you do? You said you had a routine where you sort of check in the morning, check in at the end of the day with yourself. Did you accomplish it? Whatnot. What are some things that, that listeners might take into mind to really get towards that high value action so that they can, do the self-care, do the other routines, and recognize that those are high value actions to actually get their work done and get their productivity up?
Well, I think it's not simple at all, because I think this is what most companies or entrepreneurs get stuck on and suffer through for a long time before they get it right. It's like this idea of actually hitting product market fit. And I think that's, whether you're a startup or a one person shop, it doesn't matter. You need to figure out what your product market fit is, where what you have is exactly what your target client wants. And without that fit, nothing works. Your marketing doesn't work. Your client acquisition doesn't work. Team building doesn't work. Visioning doesn't work. Nothing works. Because for many companies, especially when they're pretty young, there's a lot of detours. There's a lot of shiny object syndrome. There's a lot of vacillating around that. So what a lot of times when I start working with clients, I have them really look at, what are the 3 things that you do better than anybody else? And if you could only do 3 things, what would they be? And then take the one thing out of that actually makes you really good money. What is that? There's I have this little business model that it's a sin not to use it, because the acronym is SIN. Johanna actually came up with it. It's a sin not to use it. But it is the idea of that, to have a really good business that works well, you got to make sure that you have the skill level. You're really, really good at it. You're inspired to do it. You really, really love it. And your market really, really needs it. So you have skill, you're inspired, and you have need for the market. So I think when people look at their businesses, it's what's more important than ever is that every month do a little bit of a feedback session with yourself and go, okay, where did I make money? Or where did I actually just expend a lot of time and energy and nothing came back? That's a big one. And, some things you will put in time and energy for a long time because it's a long-term return. And those are really important, but you have to to me, it's like those only make sense if you're working them in parallel with short-term returns. So it's like, what's making me money now so that I actually get the energy back, which is really important. If you're always just putting stuff out and out and out, it's really exhausting because you don't get the return that you need to stay inspired and motivated. And then the long-term strategy, as in like, what do I need to keep building in a parallel so that it takes my business to that next level?
So true. It's so true. I mean, there's just, I think that that is something that I see so many of my clients as well that get stuck on that piece. And yeah, it's one of your special skill is to be able to extract that from people. They've seen you do it, and it's pretty amazing to watch because I think it is something that a lot of businesses suffer from. And without that,
Even, I mean, I've worked with startups that are doing millions, like, and they're especially, becomes a really important strength when you take on investors or business partners or anything like that. Anybody who will want to have some input or say so over the company, because they come with their own agenda, their own ideas. And if you're not really clear on your core competencies, the business suddenly starts doing this. So it's like, pick the one thing, go deep, and do not add anything else until you've like basically exhausted that. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs, it's like, oh, let me pick this thing. Oh, I'm going to mess around with this for a little bit. Oh, it's been 3 months. It's still not working. I'm going to do something else. So it becomes something else, something else, something else. And nothing ever really comes to fruition. And that's exhausting and frustrating and does not result in money
yeah, I
or
mean,
growth.
it seems like even within your sin, you almost need like sint, where there's tenacity in there they just,
Sing, grit, sing. I like it. We're gonna have people singing now.
oh,
Yeah.
T, sint
No, I
tenacity.
wanted. Yeah, I turned it into grit because I
Oh,
like
grit. Yes.
sing
Well, grit.
better.
Yeah. There you go. I like to sing too. That's all
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, no, that's a huge one. That's a good point.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's interesting you bring in grit because I think that whether you're a business owner or whether you're a voyager and a nomad, there's times where you really you need to apply all of those to get you through some of the tough moments that you're transitioning, and I think it's something really to keep in mind. It's like, what are your skills? What are you inspired to do, and how does it fit the need? And that is not unique to businesses. It's also, running, managing a family or moving around yourself and just like getting from place to place. Like, how can I do this? And why am I doing this? Making the choice. I would imagine you do a similar process as you choose your next location. Sometimes it may be sort of like, what is the place that's going to inspire us and where can we have, can be the best and do the things that we need to do and
Which is a little different right now. Right now, we're
well,
actually
yeah, it's
really
quarantine.
needing to pick our next location because we're here till the end of May and we have nothing else figured out yet. And we're all over the place. And I think you texted with Sarah yesterday or whatever. So we're like, okay, where are we going to go next? And we're like, okay, since we don't know what's happening, it's got to be just a really beautiful location because we don't know if there's anything else that we can really take advantage of. So it's got to be, beautiful. There's got to be a place to take the dogs running. There's got to be a place for us to feel peaceful and quiet and not just, oh my God, when I think of some past locations, Florida was a little harsh
Yeah,
where
well,
it is
particularly
really,
now.
no,
Yeah.
well, now, yeah, for sure. But even then, it's such a incredibly populated state. It's really hard to find a place where it's just quiet and there's not a ton of people. It's impossible. It's funny. My sister-in-law, at some point we went for a drive and she goes, how many hours do you have to drive until you're out of the strip malls? Like, apparently about 2.
Oh, jeez. Well, it's a different lifestyle, and I think it makes us really appreciate the perspective of a lot of people right now they don't even have the ability to do that. So depending on where people are located. Some people may be stuck in an apartment in New York City and not be able to get out. And
Have you seen that Facebook group View from My Window?
yes,
It's kind of amazing. I mean,
yeah,
there's like the amazing locations, and then there's the I'm in, Shanghai, China, and here are the concrete blocks that I see outside my window.
yeah. Well, perspective is really important to sort of recognize sort of, how fortunate we are, but also the opportunity for, where we want to go and being inspired to make change when we have the opportunity to.
And you started with this with self-care, and I want to loop back to that for a second because what I find is what most entrepreneurs don't do is take a freaking break in the middle of the day and get some perspective. Stop what you're doing, go for a walk. Or if you don't have the time for a walk, well, at least go walk around the block or do something that changes your physical location for a minute so you can get out of the energy that might have been a little bit depleted and come back with kind of some new, fresh perspective of like, what can you do next that you hadn't thought about before? So perspective, I think it doesn't need to be the beautiful beach outside my window, but it can be just, wow, I need to get out of this house for a minute.
Yeah, if you can.
Or I need to go into a different
Go
room
to a
and
different room.
hopefully there is a different room and there's a window you can open.
Yeah, go into a different room, open up, get some fresh air, maybe turn on something that forces you to move. There's
Yeah.
there's
Well,
all
and
there's
that's
so many great programs that you can stream right now that get you moving and
yeah. And that's actually even in my most basic practice. It's like, yeah, I do my gratitude exercise every day. So I don't get to do anything before I can come up with 10 things to be grateful about. And then there's the soundtrack of awesome. So over time, I've collected the music that makes me feel good from like all sorts of different times in life. And it's, music is so powerful because I can turn on any song on that playlist and feel good.
okay, you have to share your playlist. Is this on Spotify?
Hmm.
Oh,
It is. It's a really good
can you make
one.
it public so we can share it with folks?
I think so.
Is
I
it
don't know
called
how that works.
Soundtrack of Awesome?
It is.
I love that.
How do you do that?
Well, we could do it afterwards, but I'll put a
Okay.
link in the end so people can follow your Soundtrack of Awesome because
Really good
I think
playlist.
music is absolutely totally agree with you. Whether you're playing it, whether you're physically playing it, or whether you're just listening to music, it can
Oh, and
really
then
change
dance
your
it out.
mindset. Yeah, oh, dance it out, absolutely. Shake your booty, so
Yeah.
so key. Yeah. And the other thing is, if you're fortunate enough to be in quarantine with someone that you love, whether it's your children or your partner
Helpful.
or whatever it is, yeah, or even just get them up and have them dance with you, because I think there's something about that physical contact and the connection is also really key, and particularly when we're living in confined spaces, we tend to be sort of shuffling around each other to give each other space, but we that physical touch is actually, and positive interaction is also really important to keep us moving and keep us feeling
Well,
good about the people that we're with.
and then if you can be on the same groove, that really helps, right?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely, get the groove on.
That's right.
Yep.
Yeah.
So yeah, dance more, laugh more. That's something. Oh my God, laughter is something that I've sort of rediscovered. It sounds silly, but like I find that I don't laugh
It
enough.
does.
Yeah,
You laugh a lot. What are you talking about?
I laugh more now because I have sort of made a conscious decision to bring more laughter into my life, and
That's a good one.
I just felt like I had gotten way too serious, and that's one of the things I love about my friendship with you and Sarah is that you guys make me laugh a lot, and I love that. I do. No, I mean it's just such a positive thing. Like you bring out the laughter for me, and that is, joy is something so critical for all of us to experience. And I've got a new
Well,
friend.
and I
She's a
think what
comedian, and so it's like if I need that jolt into it, sometimes I use her.
well, and what is really like we've gotten so serious. And that's, I think, as an entrepreneur, it's very easy to get very serious because you're in the grind, in the grit of all the things. And it's really hard to get your head above it and just kind of refocus on the big picture and take a breath. And I think the biggest thing in that is not taking yourself so seriously, because the second you don't, it's like, oh, okay, now we can actually disconnect from this. This is not quite so dramatic as it is in my mind right now. It's just really a problem I'm solving.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that's something I say to my clients all the time. It's like, no, you're not a CEO. What you are is a problem solver.
Yeah.
So don't think the problems are never going away. That is your job in this company, is solving these problems. So now, are you solving these problems with, enthusiasm, joy, interest, curiosity? I mean, you can approach problems from so many different states. Or are you in stress, frustration, grind, anxiety, fear, blah, blah, blah? I've really gotten into this construct of emotional states and observing your own emotional states as you go through the day.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of fascinating. For most people I do this with, you should do this later. So set yourself down and think for a moment about like how many, not just how many, but what emotional states do you habitually live in a typical day?
Mm-hmm.
So write them down. It's really interesting. What we've found is that women usually come up with like 10 to 15, and men are like 5 to 7. I don't know if that's just the kind of guys I work with, but it was pretty interesting. And really think about it. It's like, okay, so the emotional states I mostly live in, my habitual emotional states are, you'll come up with those, whatever they are, and then look at what's the percentage of time that I live in the top 3 of those. It tends to be pretty eye-opening. And then the next question is always, well, where would I rather live? What are the positive states that are in there and that I can expand on? It's a really good exercise.
It sounds like a really great exercise. I'm going to try that today. And I guess that means that I have to get out from behind my screen here and
yes,
and find those of different emotional states, different physical states and emotional states, but absolutely
go out on your deck with a pretty view.
Yeah, and we're fortunate to have that. It's true.
Yeah,
yeah, and it really does help. And I think that weather has a big impact on it. But I think that those emotional states, when you're in a place of discomfort for whatever reason, I think to understand sort of what are those states and what's causing you to be in them too.
Logan, I think especially right now, I mean, it's so funny because you and I did this interview when it was kind of still at the beginning of this a little bit more. Mm-hmm. And now it's, 3-4 weeks later and things are so different. It's like, no, this is not new anymore. This is the new normal. Is this the old normal? Is this the whatever it is? But one thing I've really kind of gotten on this bandwagon of give yourself some grace. Mm-hmm. This is something I've been talking with all my clients about, like on a weekly basis. It's and this is where I'm going to bring in scripture because it's kind of interesting because when, the concept of grace comes from scripture and what it typically means is forgiveness, right? Forgiving yourself, forgiving others, letting go of things. And when you keep reading, and actually there's another concept in there that defines grace as empowering. But you can't get to the empowering part before the letting go part. So that's kind of like you can't give yourself grace if you're still upset with yourself, if you're still upset with somebody else. Mm-hmm. So it's that I think right now especially there's not much space for judgment of yourself or others. It's like, I found this. I'm usually an extremely productive person. I'm so much less productive right now than I usually am.
Yeah. No, I think we all are. Yeah.
Everything seems to take more effort. And I've heard a lot of people just saying, I would really like to just curl up in a ball and watch Netflix all day and drink several bottles of wine. And I mean, these are usually happy, productive people.
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot right now of like, this is not normal. There's a lot of emotion that really comes into this state we're all in, and it's not going to be your normal self.
Yeah. It's so true. And I think that's something that we all could really could benefit from and really take it to heart as we move forward and think about giving ourselves that space to forgive and let go, and not just of ourselves, but of those around us. And I think
Those
there's,
poor people who are with us.
well, I think that there, I mean, even here you see people sort of shaming others for, for not doing what they're expected to do. And whether it's anything from like, not having a mask on when they're out having, out on a hike, or walking too close together, but you don't know whether they're from the same household. There's just this very
Yeah.
interesting dynamic that's going on of, people are scared, and so they let that come through in so many different ways, and whether they say something or just, stare you down,
Energetically whack you.
energetically whack you. There's a lot of energetic whacking, and it's like this. You
Wow.
just got to remove that judgment and give yourself some grace and assume that people have good intentions, and also recognize what your own intentions are. And if you catch yourself making that judgment, to sort of step back and go, wait a minute, where
Yeah,
where is this really coming from? And
for sure.
I think that
I
that
think
grace is really important right now.
a friend of mine texted me this last week. She's like, you won't believe what just happened. I went to the store and I was like trying to, I was really nervous about going to the store, and I was like trying to find an aisle where nobody was. And, I'm like trying to get my stuff. And then I turn around, there's this woman really close to me, and I just freaked out. I just started yelling at her. And,
Oh my
and
gosh.
she's like, I'm so embarrassed now. I don't know what happened, but suddenly there I was yelling at this poor woman. And I think people just are on a hair trigger because of, fear and not knowing and uncertainty. And there's just so much that's uncertain.
Yeah.
And that goes back to, the 6 human needs. It's like certainty is like the top of the list. And variety is second. But if certainty and variety are not in good balance, it does not go well.
Yeah. Yeah. I think,
But yeah,
we all could stand to taking a breath and just,
that's for sure.
have
With
grace
your
and take a
mask
breath.
on.
Yeah, with your mask on. Yeah, exactly. Oh my gosh. It's so funny. My silly mask thing is, and I have so much sympathy for people who have to wear these things all day long, but we have masks from because we have the fire season here. And so we have the proper masks. And whenever I put one on to go to the grocery store, and I come out of the grocery store, and it makes my nose itch. And so I come out, and the first thing I do as I'm walking to my car is pull it down and itch my nose. And I swear, every time you get this whole line of people that are looking at you like, oh, she's touching her face. It's like,
Well, for sure. It's like pull that thing off. Yeah, I don't know how much it actually helps.
well, I mean, and fortunately, the market, they give you hand sanitizer as you're coming out. So my hands have been sanitized and whatnot. But it's just, all these little verbal or nonverbal cues that we give each other, and that we have to allow each other a little bit of grace for is important right now. And I think, whether we carry that through in our day to day, or whether we also look at that in how we do our business and reaching out, you've got your digital workspace happening, and some people are really, they can't get beyond the sit and watch Netflix all day, and that doesn't mean that they're, they don't want to reach out to you, or they don't want to respond to your messaging. It's just everybody's kind of in a state of overwhelm, and so you have to allow a little bit of grace for people to have those days where they're not responding and
Very
they're
true.
not, and maybe reach out and
Very
just
true.
say, hey, I'm thinking of you, and
Yeah.
not without any expectations. So Yeah, important stuff.
Very true.
Yeah. Anyway, well, I know you had to run. You had only had half an hour, and we've already gone over that. So I hope you're not late for your next meeting. But
No, I'm good. I had that before, so
okay,
we're good.
okay. Well, this has been so much fun having you on here, and what I found is a lot of people come on afterwards to check out the recording. So we'll give them the forgiveness of not being here at the time that we were doing the show, and hope that they enjoy it later. And if you could share with us your soundtrack of awesome, we'll make sure that we put a link there for everybody, and they can enjoy that as well and get up and boogie in their kitchen.
Totally, that'd be fun.
Yeah, we can. Maybe we'll have like a live kitchen dancing thing. We do that. We do that, and it's a
Sounds good.
great place to do it. Anyway, I
Yeah,
mean the
sounds
kitchen.
good. Perfect.
Wide Open
I like.
Spaces is our theme song right now. You know, the Dixie Chicks Wide Open Spaces.
Yeah, that's a good one.
It's a good one. We're all thinking about like, yep, ready to go.
I know. So you guys still can't travel, huh?
Not really, no.
What's
I
the
mean,
deal?
we're sort of discouraged from even getting in the car to do market runs. But, if you have to do essential errands, you have to do essential errands. But I've been using my car about once a week, which is actually kind of nice. But we're fortunate enough to be able to reach trails without getting in the car. So,
I know. So are we.
yeah.
It's kind of awesome.
Yeah. So I certainly cannot complain. I know plenty of people who I've been trying to share photos from when I'm out because I have friends that have said, oh, please share. I miss seeing nature. So,
I know. I finally made like a little ocean video just from our deck, and there are people are like, please send me more ocean videos. I need
exactly.
to see
Exactly. It's,
something.
share them. I think it's important for us to see some positive things too because there's just so much. I won't even go into political stuff, but
No,
there's so
I
much
think
stuff.
that'll be a while.
Yeah, there's so
Yeah.
much stuff that can put us in a negative mindset, and I think we need stuff that will help us feel good too. So
Yeah.
anyway, well, I miss you guys. That's the hardest part about you being in your gypsy mode is that we don't get to see you as often as we would like.
I know.
But
Well, hopefully this summer we'll intersect somewhere on the east side of the country.
yeah, that would be nice. All right, my dear. Thank you so much for
All right.
joining today. I'm going to do a little bit of editing
Welcome.
and then pop this baby up on the group or on the page so that people can watch it. And
Awesome.
we'll talk to you soon.
All
I
right.
got to find my window for Skype so I can actually close it.
Hello to the fam.